Andy, first of all, we're coming to the end of what I think can best be described as a really odd week, I suppose, for the football club. But it's a chance to, first home league game, first to try and, make a real stamp on what you want to do for your home form this year.
Yeah, first home game, a game we're looking forward to against opponents I've represented before, a former Premier League team who, when I was there, had been promoted to the Premier League. Really well-run football club by Sir John Majewski. It's had issues off the pitch in recent times, which obviously everyone's aware of. But they've now been taken over and starting to now recruit players back in. They've obviously had a troublesome pre-season in terms of the planning, but the recruitment has now started. Lost their opening game against Peterborough, but responded really well against Millwall on Tuesday night, and to go to a championship team and win 4-0 is obviously a really good result. So yeah, they're the team that we look forward to taking on, a team that we respect. But yeah, we're looking forward to a really good game.
Is it hard in some ways, like you say, given their pre-season and maybe their inconsistency in their opening couple of results, is it hard to understand where they might be as a team when you come to prepare for them?
No, obviously we do a lot of work on the opposition throughout their pre-season and throughout their opening two games in terms of team selection. So Tuesday night's team was totally different to last Saturday's, but they've identified a style of play already, which is evident, which we've looked at and prepared for, both with and without the ball.
Looking at your own team then, there were some players, I'm thinking Josh Thomas and Ethan Chislett both had a big impact on Tuesday. I know you've tried to keep the squad fresh for the amount of games you've got, but when players play like that, it must be really hard to leave them out in some ways because of the impact they've had.
Yeah, I said to the players on Monday about rewarding consistency in performance, and when you go out there and play well, you're giving me a decision, a choice to make for the following game. But I think at this early stage of the season, it's difficult, certainly with the new amount of game time to go and play back-to-back games, and certainly to play 3 games in a week. So yeah, it's given me a lot of things to think about. But say it is and is always going to be about the squad and about the group and how we can affect the next opponent.
Lots of managers and players seem quite unhappy about the amount of time that's been added on. I know it's the rules and it's been stuck to, but do you see it settling down in some ways that because surely it's not sustainable for 10 maybe more minutes of added on time at the end of each half?
I think in terms of the way the cautions have been policed at the start of the season, I think whenever there's a change of rules by the referees, it always appears to be more sterner at the start of the season. They're less apologetic. They make decisions maybe they don't throughout the rest of the campaign. There's obviously been a big thing about time wasting, kicking the ball away and showing dissent, which has always been there, but perhaps it's not being policed as consistently as it probably should have been, which may then have stopped it. But the powers that be have decided to go down a different route in terms of extending the amount of game time. 110 minutes for us on Saturday, and I think 104 on Tuesday night. And when that comes into play and when you've got a 3-game week, it then has to influence team selection, because it really is, it puts the players at a physical disadvantage, because you're concentrating so much on the game, and then it has to be about the recovery. But then what about training? What about, are you trying to do things on the grass? So we have to look at ourselves and almost identifying a new training routine than we possibly had spoken about pre-season. So it's going to be challenging. It's going to be difficult for everyone. Will it change? Will the game time go down? I don't see how it can. Now they've made that decision.
How does it affect things like, and you've already talked team selection, but how does it affect things like strength and conditioning, making sure the players are in check and are at their peak by the time the match day comes around? Is that hard to balance now?
It's going to be different, Phil. It has to be different, because the amount of distance these players are going to run is going to change. If you're playing for 110 minutes, that's an extra 20 minutes game time. The average ball in play last season, I think, was 48 minutes, maybe in League One. For example, Bolton's game against Lincoln on Saturday was 68 minutes. The ball was in play for. So if you're asking that's going to consistently impact the players. I think it works out probably you play an extra game every 5 games. If this continues, the amount of game time, I think the average on Saturday's games was 16 minutes. So do the maths and it adds up that you're going to be playing a game every 5 or 6 games, an extra game. And when you're on 3 game weeks, because of the cup competitions, we've got 11 more midweek games left to go, so 11 more 3-game weeks. So I have to take all those things into consideration, and even more so at the start of the season. And I think the other thing for me is, time wasting and kicking the ball away has always been a yellow card, but it seems like it's been more stricter. But the threshold for suspension hasn't changed. It's still 5. It's still 5 cautions and you're suspended. And the squads in the lower leagues haven't got the amount of players that they have in the Premier League and the Championship.
Just switching tack to some of the players that maybe haven't figured for you over the first couple of games, Jason Lowe, Kofi Barmer, are you in a position to say where some of those guys are? Mitch obviously went off at half-time at Barnsley, so how are they? Yeah,
Kofi played against Accrington in pre-season, picked up a slight stomach groin issue, which we were really concerned about within the 24 hours of the game, because he was really in some pain. That's now settled right down. He's back out on the grass and progressing really well. You'll have seen that Loy went off in the early stages against Doncaster. He had to stoop down for header really, and was out of balance and tweaked his hamstring a little bit. Again, back on the grass, progressing really well. Mitch missed Tuesday night's game with injury from where he came off at half-time against Barnsley.
Just a final thing. Overall, over this first week, what have you learned? Because obviously it's been a big week for you. It's your first week as permanent manager. You've seen maybe the best and the worst, if we're going to be blunt about it. What have you taken from this week? What have you maybe picked up on that you maybe didn't know before?
What I didn't know before, I'm not sure it's what I didn't know before. I think it's when you have a result like we did last Saturday, it's really important that you try and remain on a consistent emotional level, not getting too high and certainly not getting too low with things. No wins and losses cause reactions, obviously. I think it's my job to not only challenge the players in a variety of ways, but it's also there to support them, because I've been out there as well when you come off a pitch like that and things have not gone to plan how you wanted them to, and they need support from the staff and from each other. And I said the players who haven't been involved in the games, the Tom Conlons, the Jason Lowes, the Kofi Barmers, have been incredibly supportive to the other players, as have all the staff to each other and to myself as well. And that's come throughout the whole club. It was an incredibly difficult start last Saturday. We caused our own problems within that game, and Barnsley were absolutely ruthless when they had opportunities. But I'm sure we'll have learned valuable lessons about that. And when you go through a 46-game season, there is definitely going to be ups and downs. There's going to be obstacles. You're not going to perform in games for a variety of reasons, physically, tactically. But then it's important then you speak about things. You try and remain on that even keel, and then you move on to the next game, because there's always another game.
And there is one more game to come that you maybe didn't know about. That was the League Cup draw last night, and you've got Crewe. Obviously, for a lot of people around here, that's a local derby, and again, it's one that the players can really get their teeth into.
Yeah, I think we've now played Crewe twice in a week, so we've obviously been drawn in the Papa John. So yeah, good to get through to the next round. I'm not sure the last time that we did as a football club, so good to get through. I think it was a really good game against Fleetwood. There was really good moments from us, but they also had good moments within the game as well. But yeah, we're through to the next round, a home game, and yeah, we look forward to playing Crewe.
Andy, you touched briefly on Reading in terms of 1 or 2 major problems, and you've done your homework, you've done your research. But does it help that you've got the technology available now with the data and everything to see how they shape up? Because there'll probably be slight changes from how they prepared last season, wasn't it?
Yeah, a different manager, a different team, a different group of players with different notions on how the game should be played. So yeah, our an analytical department are doing an incredible job for us. Michael Johnson and Callum Brown provide so much data and information for the players. It's a real valuable source of how we're trying to learn and develop as a group. So yeah, we're prepared for Reading, as I'm sure they will be for us.
From that point of view as well, you said that obviously changing manager and everything there. Do you see a changing style for the way they're coming?
Yeah, there's a definite change in style, yeah. So we've prepared for it. We saw them play throughout pre-season with a different group to what they've got now, but an obvious identity has come forward straight away in terms of how they want to play both with and without the ball.
they've still got big players. The first one that comes to is obviously Andy Carroll,
Yeah.
and obviously he's a physical player, but he's got more than that, hasn't he? And he encourages players. He will be a threat, won't he?
I think if you've played in the Premier League for as long as Andy Carroll did and commanded the transfer fees that Andy Carroll has done, you've obviously got a very good player. He's got obvious strengths that we have to be ready to try and combat.